I am Dr. Nikal J. I am going to talk to you about shock. Particularly, what are the types of shock? What is pathophysiology? What are the complications? And how we manage the shock? Shock is a life-threatening condition that results from inadequate tissue perfusion. Okay, so there is a this is a very serious condition. Very commonly, such type of patient comes to an emergency department or in intensive care unit. These patients of shock needs immediate identification and aggressive management. If we don't act immediately and aggressively, patient may succumb. So it's a very serious condition. Shock is a life-threatening condition of circulatory failure causing inadequate oxygen delivery to meet the cellular metabolic needs and oxygen consumption requirements, producing cellular and tissue hypoxemia. So there is imbalance between oxygen supply and oxygen demand. So demand is very high and body could not meet that oxygen demand. That condition is termed as a circulatory failure or a shock. The condition of severe impairment of tissue perfusion leads to cell injury and its dysfunction. The effect of shock are initially reversible but rapidly become irreversible, resulting in failure of multiple organs and then patient may die. There are four important types of shock. One is hypovolemic shock, second is cardiogenic shock, third is a obstructive shock, and fifth is a distributive shock. Hypovolemic shock is very common. It caused by loss of volume of the blood or body fluids. The common causes of hemorrhages may be because of anything, trauma, GI bleeding, bleeding from any orifice. Then decrease in the intravascular volume because of vomiting, loose motions, or because of passing a huge amount of urine because of ketoacidosis. Or a hypovolemia even can occur because of the internal sequestration of the fluid, like in patients with ascites, pancreatitis, or because of intestinal obstruction. The cardiogenic shock primarily occurs because of the cardiac issues like myocardial problems like acute myocardial infarction or acute coronary syndrome, of fulminant myocarditis. A lot of patients of COVID now are presenting with myocarditis. Then mechanical problems like valvular problems, acute mitral regurgitation, ventricular septal defects, severe aortic stenosis, aortic dissection, and aortic insufficiency. They are the mechanical causes of cardiogenic shock. And arrhythmias, maybe a severe bradyarrhythmias or tachyarrhythmias can lead to cardiogenic shock. Then a third type of shock is obstructive shock, which occurs because of obstruction of cardiac output. This occurs because of the pericardial tamponade, a massive pericardial effusion, then massive pulmonary embolism, tension, pneumothorax. The fourth and most common important type of shock is distributive shock. The profound decrease in the systemic vascular tone. It occurs because of sepsis, the most common cause in a critically ill patients. Toxic drug overdoses, anaphylactic shock, then neurogenic shock because of the spinal cord injury, and sometimes distributive shock can occur as an endocrine shock like in Addisonian crisis or myxedema. This is a very busy slide which again specifies the causes of shock like septic shock can occur because of distributive shock. A septic shock is gram positive, gram negative, fungal, viral or parasitic infections. Non-septic distributive shock because of the inflammatory shock syndrome, neurogenic shock, then anaphylactic shock cardiogenic shock because of the cardiomyopathy, arrhythmias, mechanical problems with the heart. Hypovolemia can occur because of the hemorrhagic or non-hemorrhagic causes. Obstetric shock can again occur because of the pulmonary embolism, and sometimes a shock can present as a mixed picture. So multiple etiologies can present in a single patient. What is the clinical presentation? Hypotension is a cardinal feature of shock. So drop in arterial pressure, a systolic pressure of less than 100 or 90, and decreased mean arterial pressure less than 60 is a important feature. Then tachycardia, increase in the respiratory rate, pallor, restlessness, and altered sensorium. Then signs of intense peripheral vasoconstriction leads to weak pulses and cold and clammy extremities. In distributed shock, like in septic shock, usually there is a decreased vascular tone and patient may have a warm shock or vasodilatory shock where you get warm extremities. And decreased output or oliguria and metabolic acidosis is a common presenting feature. So a shock may present from can affect almost every part of the system. Decreased perfusion to brain causes altered consciousness, confusion, and psychosis. A patient may have lung injury or lung involvement, which causes hypoxemia. Effect on the heart causes tachycardia, hypotension, raised central venous pressure, and increased pulmonary arterial occlusion pressure. The effect of shock on the liver causes increased liver enzymes, decreased albumin, and increased prothrombin time. Effect on kidneys causes oliguria, anuria, and raised creatinine. And on hematological system, it causes decreased platelets, increase in the prothrombin time, decrease in the protein C and D dimer. So these are the clinical signs and symptoms secondary to shock. So as I told you, it affects heart, lungs, endocrine, CNS, blood, renal, and even GIT. A shock presents in a stage-wise manner. A deterioration of the circulation in shock is a progressive phenomenon and can be divided into 3 stages. First is a progressive stage initially, and then it becomes a decompensated shock, and then irreversible shock. If you act in this first level of shock, where body's compensatory mechanism comes into the play, and if you treat aggressively, patient may reverse from this stage. But once it becomes irreversible shock, a mortality is very high. So, pathogenesis of this shock. Initially, when there is a shock, baroreceptors are activated, catecholamines are released, renin-angiotensin system is activated, which causes peripheral vasoconstriction, cold, clammy skin, tachycardia, and fluid conservation by the kidney. So, decreased urine output. A progressive shock causes anaerobic glycolysis, lactic acidosis, and lower pH, which causes decreased output, DIC, then mental confusion and decreased output. In last stage or third stage of shock, which is irreversible shock, there is a persistent vasoconstriction, vasodilatation, vascular permeability, myocardial ischemia, cerebral ischemia, then activation of tumor necrosis factor. All this leads to brain death, ARDS, myocardial necrosis, acute tubular necrosis, liver necrosis, hyperplasia of the spleen, stomach ulcerations, necrosis of the intestine, and splanchnic vasodilatation. So, body initially tries to compensate this shock. So, what happens in cardiogenic shock? Heart rate might increase or decrease. A jugular venous pressure or central venous pressure is increased in the cardiogenic shock, and peripheries are cold as a compensatory mechanism. In hypovolemic shock, again heart rate increases, but JVP or neck veins are not distended, they are flat and extremities are cold. In distributive shock, like a septic shock where heart rate is increased, JVP is either raised or normal, but the peripheries are warm. And obstructive shock, heart rate goes up, JVP is increased, and extremities are cold. So if you see the type of shock and its effects, in hypovolemia, CVP is reduced, cardiac output is reduced, vascular arrest is increased, and venous oxygen saturation is decreased. In cardiac shock, you get increased CVP, decrease in the cardiac output, increased vascular resistance, and decreased venous oxygen saturation. Septic shock, initially hyperdynamic and then hypodynamic, again has increased oxygen in a venous blood. CVP is either increase or decrease, and in all traumatic, neurological, hypoadrenal type of shock, CVP is reduced, cardiac output is reduced, and vascular resistance is increased, and mixed venous saturation is decreased. What are the symptoms and signs? The hallmark of the shock is decreased perfusion to vital organs, resulting in multiple organ dysfunction and eventually death. Imbalance between oxygen supply and demand leading to inadequate cellular utilization of oxygen. Vasopressors and anatropes are medications used to create vasoconstriction or increase cardiac contractility, respectively, in patients with shock. Remember, when you talk about shock, you talk about the mean arterial pressure, which is called as a perfusing pressure to the organ, which depends on the cardiac output and systemic vascular resistance. So basically, oxygen delivery is dependent on the oxygen saturation, hemoglobin, and cardiac output. This cardiac output is dependent on the stroke volume and heart rate. This stroke volume, this cardiac output is dependent on preload, afterload, and myocardial contractility. And arterial oxygen content is dependent on the hemoglobin, oxygen saturation, and oxygen content of the arterial blood, which ultimately decide the oxygen delivery. So if cardiac output falls, the oxygen delivery falls. So either you have to improve the heart rate or improve the stroke volume by altering afterload, preload, and contractility. This is the main pathophysiological mechanism of shock and how we can intervene or treat the shock. So how you diagnose the shock can be diagnosed basically on the history and looking at the vital parameters. First is systemic arterial hypertension. Then you have to look for signs of hypoperfusion like cold extremities, decreased output, altered mental condition. These are the signs of hypoperfusion. And lactate is a marker. Hyperlactatemia is an objective marker or biomarker to diagnose shock. So, what are the lab tests you must do in patients of shock? So basically, you have to do a routine test like hemoglobin, WBC count, and platelets, CBC, which tells you if CBC shows leukocytosis or leukopenia, neutropenia. It is suggestive of infection, bacterial infection. So it tends towards sepsis. Platelet count is raised in probably causes like sepsis. You can diagnose DIC by prothrombin time, then partial prothrombin time. You have to look for electrolytes because patient may go in renal failure. Arterial blood gas usually shows metabolic acidosis and increased lactate. If sepsis is suspected, you have to draw blood culture, perform urine analysis, obtain gram stain and cultures on the sputum, urine, or a substrate site. Then obtain ECG is very important to rule out ischemic heart disease or acute myocardial infarction and arrhythmias. X-ray chest might help you in diagnosing heart failure, tension pneumothorax, and pneumonia. Echocardiogram is helpful to diagnose cardiac tamponade, then right and left ventricular dysfunction or aortic dissection. So cardiogenic uh, etiology of the shock can be very well diagnosed with the help of echocardiogram, and even dilatation of right atrium and right ventricle suggests pulmonary embolism. So obstructive type of shock also can be diagnosed sometimes with the echocardiography, which is a bedside and easily available tool. Then hyperlactatemia, as I told you, indicate anaerobic metabolism. The normal lactate levels are less than 1. So more than 1.5 lactate is a sign of shock. How to approach this patient? So early aggressive hemodynamic support is a crucial to prevent worsening of organ dysfunction and failure. Resuscitation should be initiated simultaneously without delaying while cause of shock is investigated. So don't waste your time in doing a lot of tests and looking for the diagnosis and cause of the shock. Start resuscitation right at the admission of the patient, and parallelly look for the clinical signs, laboratory reports, and search of the cause. Once etiology is identified, you have to focus on correcting that etiology or treating the etiology. This patient requires close monitoring, either in the emergency department and on the intensive care unit. A non-invasive blood pressure monitoring is a very commonly used tool to monitor the blood pressure, but it may not be accurate in patients of shock because of the vasoconstriction. The arterial blood pressure should be monitored by placing the arterial catheter, which is preferred. It also helps in taking the samples for blood gas, arterial blood gas. Then central venous line should be put either in the jugular or subclavian vein, which is useful for giving a huge amount of the fluids and to give vasoactive drugs. And also we can monitor central venous pressure. Self-retaining urinary catheter is very important to use to monitor urine output. Urine output is called as poor man's cardiac output. So a good amount of urine like 0.5 to 1 milligram per kg per day or 0.5 to 0.5 to 1 ml per kg is per hour is a target of urine output. Then you should have a cardiac monitoring to look for arrhythmia and ischemia. You have to frequently check patient consciousness level for assessment of the mental status, and pulmonary arterial catheter, which is a very huge invasive procedure, a costly procedure. Sometimes it can be used for patient with severe shock or patient with undifferentiated shock. So questionable outcome benefit of this pulmonary arterial catheter, a student should know that this is type of pulmonary arterial catheter or pulmonary catheter patient can be monitored in patient of shock. What are the endpoints of resuscitation? Classically, we should target achieving a normal blood pressure, so mean arterial pressure more than 65, good systolic blood pressure more than 90 or 100. Then if patient is having tachycardia, the target is to normalize the heart rate, increase in the urine output, and if patient is irritable, drowsy, he should come to a normal mental status. So these are the very classical, traditional endpoints of resuscitation. We can have some improved goals like normalization of serum lactate. If you have a facility to monitor lactate, then you can target that. Then base deficit with blood gases and some scoring systems. Then you can even, your goal should be to have urine output 0.5 ml per kg per hour, CVP of 5 to 10 centimeter of water, mean arterial pressure more than 65 and less than 90, and mixed venous oxygen saturation should be more than 70. So these are the endpoints of resuscitation. VIP is an approach to management of patient with shock. VIP stands for ventilate, infuse, and pump. So ventilate this patient to improve the oxygen administration to the tissue. Then infuse fluids to improve the cardiac output, and give vasoactive drugs to improve the pump function of the heart. Ventilator support, administration of oxygen to increase the oxygen to the tissues. Endotracheal intubation should be considered in a patient with severe dyspnea, hypoxemia, and worsening acidemia. A mechanical ventilation further helps in decreasing the oxygen demand to the respiratory muscles. Remember, these patients of shock are having tachypnea because of the acidosis, because of the anaerobic metabolism, because of the increased lactate. So, compensatory mechanism to remove the lactate is having an increased respiratory rate. So that increases oxygen demand to the respiratory muscles. So, but when you intubate and ventilate the patient, the oxygen demand to the respiratory muscle is decreased. Then infuse fluids. Fluid therapy is essential component of management of any form of shock. So all four types of shock, you require fluid therapy or fluid resuscitation. Even patient with cardiogenic shock benefit from small amount of fluid challenge. Remember, acute edema can result in decrease in the effective intravascular volume. So give some fluids in even cardiac patient and judge. But you have to be very careful in giving fluid in such patient. Fluid therapy needs careful monitoring to avoid fluid overload and hypothermia. Resuscitation fluids are broadly categorized into colloids and crystalloids solution. Colloids such as isotonic saline or ringo lactate are fluids of choice. Colloids by and large been studied extensively and found to have major side effects and more mortality as compared with crystalloids. So nowadays we are using only crystalloids for fluid resuscitation. Whether patient is responding to fluid or not, that we can assess by giving challenges to the fluid, challenge of fluid over a short period of time. So 500 ml to 1 liter of normal saline or ringo lactate we can infuse over 20 to 30 minutes and see whether patient is improving or not. So fluid challenge test is used to assess the fluid responsiveness. Then vasoactive drugs. If patient remains hypotensive, in spite of your fluids, vasopressors or inotropic agents are used depending on the etiology of shock and cardiac output. In low cardiac output shock, vasopressors are used to increase the vasomotor tone, whereas in low cardiac output shock, you can use inotropes like dobutamine to increase the contractility. Adrenergic agonists are first line of vasopressor because of their rapid onset of action and short half-life. Vasopressors are powerful class of drug that induce vasoconstriction and thereby elevates mean arterial pressure. Some vasopressors also work as a cardiac contractility. So many of these drugs have both vasopressor as well as inotropic activity. As we know, the adrenergic receptor, their alpha and beta receptor and dopamine receptor. Alpha 1 receptor, they are located in the vascular wall, induces significant vasoconstriction. In beta 1 adrenergic receptor, commonly located in the heart, mediates increase in the inotropy and chronotropy with minimal vasoconstriction. So drug acting on beta 2, beta 1 receptor are commonly inotropic and chronotropic effects. Beta 2 adrenergic receptor also present in the blood vessel wall causes vasodilatation. And dopamine receptor present in the renal and splanchnic, coronary and cerebrovascular bed stimulates receptor. Stimulation of this receptor leads to vasodilatation. Second subtype of dopamine receptor causes vasoconstriction by inducing norepinephrine release. So which vasopressor or inotrope you should choose? The initial agent should be based on the suspected underlying etiology of shock. Like in patient with septic shock, the first choice is noradrenaline. Or in sometimes patient with low cardiac output state, you can use dobutamine if patient has got cardiogenic shock. Those should be titrated up to achieve effective blood pressure and end organ perfusion. If maximal dose of first agent are inadequate to achieve these goals, then one should add another drug. They are the drugs, and this is the receptor on which they are acting. So most commonly we use norepinephrine or noradrenaline, which acts on predominantly alpha-1 receptor and causes vasoconstriction, but it has some activity on beta-2 receptor as a inotropic agent. Epinephrine or adrenaline also is strong alpha-1 action on alpha-1 receptor, causes vasoconstriction, and also got strong inotropic action, and it also acts on beta-2 receptor. Dopamine is a dose-dependent activity. In higher dose, it acts on alpha and beta receptor, but in low dose, it acts on predominantly beta receptor and causes vasodilatation and then vasoconstriction. Dobutamine has a strong beta-1 activity and has got strong inotropic effect. How to deal with each type of shock? Hypovolemic shock, where we know that blood volume is lost or body fluid is lost. We require initial restriction with the fluid. If patient has got blood loss like in hemorrhagic cause, transfusion of RBCs and blood products. If required, you have to give FFPs and platelets. When you are giving blood, you should give it warmer because it may cause anaphylactic reactions or rigors to the patient. And sometimes if bleeding is not controllable, you have to use hemostatic agents. A cardiogenic shock, if patient present to you with acute coronary syndrome, acute ST-LVC microinfarction with cardiogenic shock, early reperfusion therapy by fibrinolytic or percutaneous intervention like angioplasty is a gold standard therapy. So patient should be treated in a center where cath lab is available. Then the cause of cardiac shock is arrhythmia. Then you have to either use pharmacological agents which will control the rate, or electrical therapy like pacing, or a defibrillation or cardioversion. You have to optimize preload by giving fluids. A trial of small bolus of fluid with a close observation of CP and blood pressure is important in cardiogenic shock. Then use inotropic agents to augment the myocardial contractility, increasing diastolic pressure to increase the coronary perfusion and flow. Afterload reduction is also tried in cardiogenic shock. Vasodilator will cause further hypotension and use with caution in normotensive patient. And sometimes we require some mechanical devices to keep cardiac output normal with the help of intra-aortic balloon pump or extracorporeal membrane oxygenation. These patients are usually posted for cardiac transplantation, and these devices are used as a bridge to transplant. Then distributive shock, most commonly septic shock. You need fluid resuscitation initially, particularly initial 24 hours. Then if it is a septic shock, you have to start a proper antibiotic within the first hour of identification, and you have to control the source. Like if source is controllable by surgery, you have to go ahead with surgery, like empyema of gallbladder, appendicitis, a perforation proteinosis. You have to go ahead and do the surgery. If there's a necrotizing fasciitis, you have to do the debridement. So source control is very important in sepsis. Then inotropic support start when blood pressure is refractory to the fluids and vasopressors. Noradrenaline is the first drug of choice in septic shock. And anaphylactic reaction, adrenaline is a drug of choice. So in cause of distributed shock with anaphylaxis, then you have to give either subcutaneous or IV adrenaline. Obstructive shock, like cardiac tamponade or pneumothorax, the immediate relief can occur with pericardiocentesis or putting a chest drain in the tension pneumothorax. So both these procedures are life-saving in this type of patients. You have to take help of fluids and anatropes for temporary support till you go ahead and do the procedure. Lastly, the successful resuscitation of a shock patient. The physician achieves his or her greatest victory. Remember, managing shock in the ICU patient is a big challenge. Mortality is very high. And if you aggressively identify shock early and treat aggressively with fluids, vasopressors and inotrope, you can save the patient life. Thank you.